Welcome to Istanbul, where it's the first event of a new season of the Le Mans Series kicking off, with its batch of innovations and news. The most breathtaking cars in endurance racing will once again clash on some of the world's most prestigious circuits. There have been many changes in the teams, and among the drivers, a calendar that's evolved and increasing success. We'll talk about that again in a moment. The season truly started 2 weeks ago on the high-tech test track at Le Castellet for an official test session bringing together the best teams. Testing which allowed us to get an idea of the general trends for the season. Among the leading lights, the two-times World Rally champion Sébastien Loeb, who came to try out the updated Pescarolo before the 24 hours of Le Mans. A satisfying first trial for the Frenchman in spite of his lack of practice since the 2005 edition of this mythical event.
It's always a good feeling to drive this kind of car on some fast tracks like here. So it's completely different from what I've done yesterday and all the weekend. But it was again a bit hard to find again my marks in this car, but it's okay.
Another star guest, the former world skiing champion, recently victorious in the Paris-Dakar, Luc Alphand, who's engaged a team in the series.
For us, we have to try to run as max as possible, longer, many runs and many kilometers. That's very important, especially for me, because I'm not driving so much on the racetrack now. I think my last day was last year in Le Mans, so it's far away.
Unprecedented success for the Le Mans Series, which marks the return of endurance racing to the summit of motorsports. All the signs are pointing in the right direction. The adventure, which began barely 3 years ago, is running a faultless course, with a record number of cars engaged for the entire season.
We have 47 cars for all the season, with a fantastic diversity in each class. I think we have 5 different models in each class. I think it's very good for the third season. We are very young, and the level is fantastic this year. But we will carry on the same way, step by step. We'll increase the number of races, but not too quickly. And we are very optimistic.
And the future begins on the 8th and 9th of April with the first race in Istanbul. In 2005, the championship drew to a close here, and it's here on the banks of the Bosphorus that it begins. Istanbul, a metropolis spanning the continents of Europe and Asia. Turkey, an emerging nation. It was natural for a championship seeking to become more international to come to a circuit like this, even if it's a long way to travel for the teams. Despite this, for the first round of the year, there are a lot of cars on the starting grid. The weather conditions aren't great, however, cold, grey and wet. The year could have started off clement, but no one really minds. They're just here to race. Sunday morning, 11 o'clock. The start of the first race of the Le Mans Series 2006 is imminent. 1,000 kilometers of racing. But from season to season, the cars are gaining in reliability and performance. These 6-hour races have almost become sprints, with lap time differences narrowing constantly, adding to the excitement of the show. Side by side, the creation of Nicolas Manassian and the Pescarolo of Emmanuel Collard on the front line. Behind them, the dome of Alex Young, and the LMP2 Lola MG, who have achieved a real exploit making it to the second line. The cars are under the starter's orders for the rolling start, in formation while waiting for the green light. And unfortunately, the start is catastrophic for the Lola that runs up against the pit wall. First major surprise of this race that looks at this point like retirement for the crew of car number 25. A start under the yellow flag for the other competitors, while the emergency crews evacuate the Lola MG that's badly damaged. They'll have to change the whole left front end, but the British car will be able to set out again much later in the piece. The cause was certainly the damp conditions which marked the beginning of this event, and which have modified the order of the leaders. Pescarolo and Creation are overtaken by the Courage Judd of Harold Prima. The French car suffers from its tyres being too cold and can't fight off the attacks of its adversaries. The man of the moment in these first laps is Nicolas Manassian, whose Creation has made a strong impression since the beginning of the weekend, notably in qualifying. On the other hand, in the Team RML camp, faces are forlorn, and Tommy Odos still has trouble coming to grips with what happened. Taking a closer look at the images of this catastrophic start will not help him much, nor us, but the images are spectacular. Soon enough, Collard is a real threat to Manassian and keeps the pressure on at every moment. The two drivers know each other well, friends almost since their career debuts. And while we expect a fight without mercy, we're also in the presence of two consistent drivers, nothing below the belt line. First attempt for Collard, the Pescarolo comes out and tries to pass in acceleration. The Creation has the best trajectory, but is blocked by a much slower car. Manassian has to slow down to let his adversary through. The pit stops, with the LMP2 number 37, that of the Belmondo team driven at this moment by Didier André. While the Gulf Courages were rather largely dominated in qualifying, they seem to have rectified this in the race. In the Pescarolo camp, they're closely following the return of the number 17, looming on the leading car, and a direct confrontation seems inevitable. It's now just a question of seconds. This time, the Pescarolos in direct confrontation with the Creation. Manassian and Collard are into a new wrestle for position, hoping the tail-enders won't cause too much havoc. Collard passes carefully, but hesitates to take the risk to overtake the GT2 Porsche, and Manassian takes advantage of this to again take the lead of the race a few seconds only after having lost it. The confrontation certainly the first great moment of this 2006 season. On board the Pescarolo, Emmanuel Collard has lapped the dome of Alex Young, but for some mysterious reason, the Malaysian, who's not running close to anybody, resists the attacks of the leader, inevitably dissatisfied with the situation. He finally succeeds in passing, but not unscathed. And here again is the Radical of Roll Centre Racing back up on the forward stations. The British driver's in third place of the general standings and is creeping up on second. But the teams have been told at this moment that the race will be shortened by 2 hours due to a fuel shortage. Only 6 minutes racing remain. 6 minutes too many for the Radical, which puts out a worrying cloud of smoke. The driver evacuates, it's retirement and incredible disappointment. Debuting in a fanfare, the season in any case looks like being a good one for Roll Centre. In any case, this doesn't at all disturb the race leader. Jean-Christophe Bouillon only has a few kilometers left to run before taking the first victory of the season for his team. The title holders perfectly manage their race and take it easily after having almost led from start to finish.
Yeah, it's a good start. That was a really interesting race at the start between the creation from Minassian and our car. A very nice fight, and but after that it was not so complicated to win. But most important for us is to be reliable.
First in LMP2 and second overall, the Barazzi Epsilon Courage benefited from the weather conditions.
The track here has some peculiarities in the way one can perform in the wet. It's just different in the wet over here, and we had a good tire selection and a good setup, and yeah, we were able to keep up with the LMP ones because they couldn't put down all their power in the greasy conditions.
Domination without question in GT1 of the Aston Martin of the Labre competition team. And while Pedro Lamy handled the beginning of the race, it's the Belgian driver Vincent Vos who ensures the last stint. Not so easy. First victory for the Ferrari 430 over the Porsche and the Panos in a highly disputed GT2 category. Midday Sunday, on the starting grid, one car's missing, the Pescarolo Judd. Following Friday's tangle with the Aston Martin of Vos, the Pescarolos relegated to start from the pit lane. We're off for a formation lap with the safety car leading the cars towards the starting line. And they're off for 1,000 kilometers or 6 hours of racing. Marcel Fassler keeps the advantage of the pole as they go through Eau Rouge. Tommy Erdos is left up from the second line, Gounon's third and Nielsen's fourth. But at the top of the Rédillon, Kevin McGarity loses control of the Protran and smashes into the tyre wall. The car bounds back onto the track and the result is catastrophic. Jean-François Laroche can't avoid the wreck and smashes the Courage. It's the same fate for the Ferrari of Sundberg and for the Porsche of Team Autolando. The accident looks very bad. Several drivers are evacuated by ambulance, but luckily there are no major injuries. This time it's okay and the cars head off for the big race. Marcel Fassler retains the first place and very quickly Jean-Marc Gounon gets an honourable mention to the detriment of Tommy Erdos in the MG Lola LMP2. Gounon at the wheel of the new Courage LC70 Mugen is running hot here in Spa. In the Stavelot corner, the French driver takes the upper hand. And there you have it. After only 20 minutes racing, Bouillon second with Gounon in his sights. When Jean-Marc Gounon heads into the pits for his first refueling stop, the Pescarolo Judd takes the leading position. Then, as the Pescarolo takes its turn to take to the pits, they lose the first place. For Jean-Christophe Bouillon, everything's running perfectly. He takes first place, and nothing seems to stop the Pescarolo Judd. This race decidedly has its share of accidents. This time it's the Dane Jens Moller who smashes the Lister against the crash barriers at full speed coming out of Blanchiment. And yet again the safety car takes to the track. In LMGT2 it's difficult to forecast a result. Porsche, Ferrari, Panos and even Spyker are battling for the first places. Battles that sometimes get a little nasty. An illustration here with Warren Hughes, who tries a suicide attack on Lucas Drudi to take 6th place in the category. The shock is quite violent, and both cars are down for the count. It's without any doubt, however, that the most virulent battles are in GT1. Stefano Ortelli in the Celine, who's been at the wheel since the start, resists the attacks of Antonio Garcia in the Aston Martin, who's giving it everything he's got. The two drivers are running hard as they try to get around the tail enders. The battle is even on in the pits when the two leading cars in GT1 come in at the same time. The exit's very close and the Aston takes the advantage. In LMP2, the Lola Chamberlain's putting on an amazing show. They're running second overall and, of course, leading their category. The Portuguese team, made up of Amaral, Angel de Castro and Berguinho, are performing exceptionally well. In GT2, things are sorting themselves out a little. The Porsche of Team Orlando, driven by Lieben Kamatias, is currently leading the category, but its lead is not huge over the Ferrari 430 of Erling and Sugden, who are pushing back up. Victory goes to the high-performance team of Kamatias and Lieb in the Porsche of the Italian Orlando team. In GT1, the Corvette C6R of the Belgian PSI team, driven by Paltara, Menten and Kuismanen, takes the third step of the podium. Right till the end, the Certec Aston Martins battling with the Oreca Celine. In the end, Sohei Ayari crosses the finish line as winner. The first international victory for the new Oreca Celine. The Lolas totally dominated in LMP2. They monopolized the podium with William Binney's car third and sixth overall. Newton and Erdos take the Lola MG to second place, a result that will help forget the dreadful race at Istanbul. Victory in P2 goes to the Portuguese car of Team Chamberlain. They led virtually from start to finish. It was by just a narrow margin that the Lola number 39 was pipped for third overall. Two spins by Miguel Amaral just at the end of the race, and the Zytek slipped through into third place at the finish. Of course, meaning third place in LMP1. Despite a few starter motor hassles towards the end of the race, the Swiss Spirit Courage LC70 signs a superb result. Just a few months ago, the team didn't exist, and at Spa, the cars placed just a lap away from the best car in the championship. Serge Saurnier's boys can be extremely proud. Already in Istanbul, the Pescarolo team had proven its strength and regularity. Here they put the same recipe back to work, concentrated entirely on the task at hand. Collard and Bouillon are victorious, and all augurs well for the Le Mans 24-hour race. At 11:45, and it's the rolling start for this third race of the year. Manassians in pole position. But within the first few meters, the French driver's passed by Shinji Nakano, who's running wild. The battle goes all the way through the first corner, and finally, it's the Courage that takes the lead to the detriment of the Creation. Still worse for Manassi, and Collard slips into second place. It's certainly an exciting start to these 1,000 kilometers or 6 hours racing at the Nürburgring. The brilliant performance of the Courage number 13 of Nakano's short-lived, as just 20 minutes into the running the clutch has a problem and repairs will take quite a while. Back to the race leaders, and Collard still solidly installed in the front. Hot on his heels, a very fast Jean-Marc Gounod is putting on the pressure. As usual, the French driver and his Courage Mugen are in the leading pack, but reliability has been a bugbear since the start of the season. After the first refueling stops, the Swiss Spirit Courage makes it onto the virtual podium. Further back, Jan Lammers and Nicolas Manassian are in a major battle, with the latest generation car not having too many problems getting the better of the Dome Jard of Lammers. A little further back, Nicolas Manassian's in good form and comes back up on Marcel Fassler. The Swiss Spirit driver doesn't resist for long, and Manassian's into third position. Gounod is now less than half a second off Collard, with the firm intention of taking the lead. Difficult to point the finger at which driver is at fault in this tangle, but luckily the cars are not damaged and can continue on their way. In any case, Gounod has lost contact with Collard. Victorious here last year, the Zytek, driven this time by Noder and Johansson, is in difficulty. The car has to be pushed into the garage, and it doesn't look like they'll be able to repeat the exercise this year. There's an incident in GT2, a tangle between the Spiker of Kanan Krevels hitting the Ferrari of Drew Di Rosa and De Simone. Decidedly, there are some major upsets. Here, Gabbiani, who relayed Manassian in the Creation, is in third place, but forced to limp back to the pits with a blown tyre. He loses 3 places in the exercise. And the hassles continue. This time it's the Courage Mugen, number 12, which was in solid second place, forced to head into the pits, and for them the race finishes here. This round of eliminations allows the excellent Joao Barbosa to put his surprising LMP2 Radical into an incredible second place overall. There's a big fright for Philippe Hainaut. He smashes his Porsche at full speed, and the safety car comes out for its only appearance here at the 1,000 kilometers of Nürburgring. It's at this point that the sky darkens over the Eureka camp. The Saline is unable to come back out of the pits. They have a major breakdown. The final stages in LMP2 are epic. Perguinho at the wheel of the Lola is under threat by Barbosa. The Radical driver is 1 second up per lap on his adversary, and as he attacks, the result's catastrophic for the Roll Center team. Barbosa loses all hope of victory. In LMGT2, the final stages are quite calm. Running regularly from the start, the Spiker of Hensemans and Bleekemolen finishes on the podium. Kamatias and Lieb, exhausted towards the end, managed to take second place and conserve the lead of the championship in LMGT2. Victory at the Nürburgring goes to the GPC Ferrari of Stefano Zonca, Andrea Bellici and Marco Chiocci. The victory remains undecided until the last minute. Finally, Goulart, Alphand and Policon are second, just 10 seconds off the winning Aston Martin. Two minutes from the finish, the Team Labre car has to come into the pits, with Vos taking a last stint. The driving time for the Belgian driver was just 1 minute too short for him to be able to take championship points. The least one could say is that it was played to a cat's whisker, but finally the honour was saved. As for Castro and Burgueño, associated here with Amaral after their second consecutive win in LMP2. But let's get back to the end of this race in LMP1. Nothing can be said of the winning car, Eric Hellery taking the finish with 3 laps lead. On the other hand, Alex Young, running second, sees Nicolas Manassian and the Creation coming up fast in his rear vision mirrors. The French driver puts pressure on the Malaysian. Young gives in a few laps from the finish and leaves a well-deserved second place to Manassian, Gabbiani and Ortiz. As for Hellery, he can just glide to the checkered flag to offer Pescarolo the 3rd victory of the season in as many races. Only 1 point is lacking in order to claim the championship.
Yeah, that's it. Third race, third win. But as usual, Emmanuel Collard did a fantastic job during 2 stints. Behind Jean-Christophe Bouillon was perfect. And at the end, Eric Hellery just keep the advantage we had at the beginning. All 3 drivers have been really good. And my team also, no mistake at all. The pit stop very, very quick. And at the end, we are very pleased.
What are we going to see happening for the rest of the season then?
I don't know yet. I hope that it's not the last race, you know, because I would like to continue and to finish the championship. Still 2 races to go, and I will fight very hard to be at the 2 last races. For the first time in its history, the Le Mans Series touched down on the circuit of Donington Park at the end of August.
As always, it's a rolling start. As the safety car moves off the track, it's Hideki Noda who's up alongside Jean-Marc Gounod. Noda is thus in the lead, but breathing down his neck is Gounod, followed by Jamie Campbell-Walter, Jean-Christophe Bouillon and Nicolas Manassian. The Japanese driver isn't able to fight the pack off for long. In the hairpin behind the pits, Gounod attacks and takes back the position that was his after qualifying. Jamie Campbell-Walter takes advantage of this to slip into the gap, hanging on the coattails of the Courage. Hideki Noda and the Zytek now are running third. For Gounod, the following lap is a nightmare. His rear tyres have a problem, and the French driver loses another 2 positions on Nicolas Manassian. Then Marcel Fassler in the Courage of Swiss Spirit. With the first driver change, the Creation number 9 is glued to the pits with a rear wheel problem.
Take his foot off the brake!
A pit stop for the Pescarolo, and the freelance driver Didier André takes the wheel from Jean-Christophe Bouillon. He comes out second behind Kevin McGarity, who's replaced Nicolas Manassian at the commands of the Creation number 10. The British driver has 13 seconds lead. The battle that follows is absolute poetry. Firstly, it's the Swedish driver who gets the upper hand, but the ex-single-seater driver's quick to take back what was his. The action's absolutely spectacular, but the Zytek won't hoist back up to P1. On top of that, Johansson has to leave his place to Hideki Noda, who's not quite so quick. Out of the pits, the Japanese driver is in third position. The final stages will be a nightmare for some of the top runners in this 1,000 kilometers of Donington. The Zytek is in the pits with what looks like a serious problem. The victory in LMP2 thus goes to Erdos and Newton, who, thanks to the bad luck of the roll center team, can take the top step of the podium. In GT1, in the second last lap, Antonio Garcia passes Jérôme Policon and snatches away the victory in the category. The first success for the Modena team in the Le Mans Series. In GT2, the Panos takes a well-earned victory. The Esperanti didn't have the slightest problem. Hats off to Robert Bell and Warren Hughes. The other hero of the day in GT2 is Joel Camatias, who, thanks to a second place in the category, scoops the driver's title. At Donington, the Creations make it a double-header. Behind the Pescarolo, that is, Nicolas Manassian and Kevin McGarity are second ahead of the trio of Felipe Ortiz, Jamie Campbell-Walter and Beppe Gabbiani. For the fourth time in as many races this season, the car of Henri Pescarolo takes overall victory in the Le Mans Series. They're already 2006 champions, one race from the end of the season.
Well, it was our target to win that race and to win the championship with the panache, you know. And in small piece in our mind, we would like to win all 5 races, so we still have one, and then we will be very happy.
Hola, soy Antonio García, conduzco el Aston Martin del Team Modena. Y nada, bienvenidos al Jarama a esta última prueba de las Le Mans Series.
And now here we are at the start of the last Le Mans Series race of the year. Relegated to the back of the grid, Giovanni Lavaggi prefers to start from the pit lane with his brand new car. On the grid there are 35 cars ready to start for 6 hours or 1,000 kilometers of racing. From the first meters, Emmanuel Collard shows all the signs that he's here to take his 5th win of the season. The Frenchman won't be letting anyone through in late braking at the end of the straight and won't let Gounod worry him. Behind Emmanuel Collard and Jean-Marc Gounod, the other Courage Mugen, driven by the Japanese driver Shinji Nakano. In 4th place, Nicolas Minassian, who's already moved up 1 place. Then we find Tommy Erdos in the Lola MG. On the other hand, for Giovanni Lavaggi, their first start is a failure as they spin in the very first corner of the track. In the forward posts on this track, where it's extremely difficult to overtake, Jean-Marc Gounod's breathing down the neck of the Pescarolo over Emmanuel Collard. It's apparent that the Courage is faster, but it's impossible to find an opening. Gounod has to wait 21 minutes before finally finding the gap and slipping through into the lead. The Courage Mugen pulls away and Collard doesn't attempt to follow. Collard's thus second for the moment, threatened by the other Courage Mugen driven by Shinji Nakano. At this moment, all the observers are wondering how long the cars will be able to keep up the hellish pace, but apparently there's still plenty of wind left in their sails. Jean-Marc Gounod is still solidly installed in the lead, but the safety car is sent out onto the track and takes its place just behind the Pescarolo. Gounod heads back into the pits and loses his first place to the benefit of Emmanuel Collard. With the restart, Collard is thus in the lead, and Gounod is running 4th. But he's running hot, lapping very quickly, but at this point, the drama happens. Gounod out of the running. It's the other Courage that takes the role of blocking the Pescarolo. It's the other Mugen of Shinji Nakano and Kurosawa that takes the lead. A close battle ensues, and finally it's Didier André who gets the upper hand. Joining the Pescarolo team at Donington, paying his own way, André yet again proves that he's a top-line driver, at home in the best team in the field. In just a few minutes, and surprisingly at this point, the Pescarolo will yet again prove to be a notch above the others and infallible in the Le Mans Series this season, contrary to their adversaries. It's at this point that Sugden, running 3rd in GT2, finds himself in the gravel trap, causing the safety car to come back out onto the track. Once the safety car heads back off the circuit, the drivers will have an easy run up until the finish. In LMGT2, the Ferrari of Rosa, De Simone and Drudi who win, but just a few minutes after their jubilation and victory chants, it's a cold shower, as the team is disqualified, having run one of the drivers too long on the track. As a result, it's the Panos of Bell and Hughes that take victory. In LMGT1, the Celine walks all over its rivals, and Ortelli and Ayari take their second victory of the season on this very tricky Spanish track. Windy and bumpy, the opposite of Spa-Francorchamps, where they took their first win. The recipe is simply that the car is well prepared and well driven. It's one to look out for on any track.
We were not the quickest at the beginning, far by, and we finished to set up a very good car for the qualifying and for the race, and the race was just perfect.
Finishing second, Vos, Gardel and Lamy take the crown in the ultra-competitive LMGT1 category. The Labre team can add another trophy to their collection.
It was a big fight for this race, so everybody had possibility, almost everybody had the possibility to win the championship. And I mean, difficult conditions. We didn't have a very good setup at the beginning, and but it was enough. I mean, I'm really happy. The team did a great job, and that's why we won. I'm really pleased to win again this championship.
In LMP2, the victory comes easy for the ASM Lola, finishing second overall.
We get the result, the best result we could expect.
On the other hand, the team title will be played out in the last 10 minutes. Running second in the category, Tommy Erdos only has to cross the finish line, but his car will decide otherwise.
We appear to have developed an engine problem. At the moment we're reading no oil pressure. The engine stopped and we're struggling to restart it, so looks like an engine failure, which is pretty enough time to have it happen really. So we're still trying to see what we can do. But at the moment it looks like we've got engine failure.
As a result, the Barazzi Epsilon team at the end of a grueling race will pocket a surprise title in LMP2.
There's only one person to thank for this, and he's up there. Apart from that, we won on consistency. We won this championship entirely on consistency. We were not the quickest car out there, everybody knows that, but we had a team that worked day and night, every day, all year round, and it's nothing to do with quick drivers, it's nothing to do with brilliant strategy, it's just really, really, really hard work from the underdog, and all the credit, or the majority of the credit, goes to the team who have done an incredible job to win against all the odds. I'm extremely happy, obviously.
Well, congratulations, thanks very much.
Thank you.
The final moments in LMP1 are not very stressful. The positions remain undisputed. The Creation team will make it to the third step of the podium. For the fifth time in as many races this year, the Pescarolo number 17 is victorious, driven by Emmanuel Collard, Jean-Christophe Bouillon and Didier André. Henri Pescarolo couldn't dream of a better birthday gift.
It's just unbelievable, it's just a dream, you know. I couldn't believe that it should be so perfect during the whole year. You know, we have a really good team, we have really good drivers, a really good car. It is the fastest when it's necessary, it's more reliable when it's necessary, but it's always necessary. And that's the perfect team, and that's a real dream.
A couple of words about the drivers who've done a fabulous job today.
Yeah, because it was, as you saw, very difficult at the beginning of the race with the two courages. It was, Emmanuel Collard has been fantastic. Right behind Didier André was absolutely perfect. He was able to keep the car at the right place, and at the end Jean-Christophe Bouillon, as usual, was perfect also, so that's really the perfect team.
Henri, congratulations and thanks very much.
Thank you.
So it's here in Spain that the curtain draws on a superb season in the Le Mans Series. Next year, the Peugeot factory team will hit the track with a diesel-powered car. And the off-season will be very busy in development for all the teams.